Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Alison, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hey y'all, welcome to the Cycles of Time. This is your weekly forecast for May 27th to June 2nd. And the title of this episode is The Skills and Enthusiasm of Castor and Pollux. How are y'all doing after that full moon last week, now that we're deep into Gemini season, a week into Gemini season? I'm feeling pretty good at this moment. I think that full moon was really a powerful activation for me. I think full moons can often leave a bit of a hangover in the days after. So last Thursday's full moon was definitely a pretty powerful one for a lot of people I've talked to. It was opposite the conjunction of Venus and Jupiter in the sky, and so the Sun, Venus, and Jupiter were all clustered up on the cusp of Taurus and Gemini, and then the opposite side of the sky, we had Sagittarius, and it activated my personal birth chart in a big way, so it felt like a really beautiful dose of positive energy amidst a bunch of crises and grief that I'm currently processing. So I was grateful for that astrology last week. This week, the Sun, Jupiter, and Venus have all moved into the sign of the twins, into Gemini, and so they're really ushering in a big, flirtatious pollinator kind of energy as they join the Sun there. We have Uranus and Mercury still in Taurus, and with Mars in Aries and Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, there's a lot of planetary weight on one single side of the sky right now. If you look at the current transit chart, there's pretty much every planet and planetary body, asteroid is on a single side of the chart. And so that can feel kind of lopsided when that happens. And so if life is feeling kind of imbalanced right now or heavy in one particular area, the configuration of the planets could be part of why. Amidst all the lopsidedness, for me, there was, this full moon kind of shining a light into a new territory. It was all happening kind of on the one side of that lopsidedness in the chart, and new energies in that side. And I thought that was really appropriate that Venus, Jupiter, and the Sun are all entering the gate of the now. And that was our focus last week because the Sun was in the gate of the now and is transiting on, but Venus and Jupiter are still in that gate. And the gate of the now being the first gate in human design and the I Ching, the first gate of Gemini season. It's an energy that's going to linger with us through the coming weeks as well. So again, we're focused mostly on the Sun transits, so we can go through each of the 64 gates and each of the 12 zodiac signs. And I don't want to get too caught up on all of the different planetary situations and what they're doing. But when there's kind of this, double dose or multiple planets in a single gate or a single specific part of the wheel of the year, it's interesting to focus on that a little bit deeper. So the gate of the now, how did that show up for you guys? For me, it really felt beautiful. I decided to start rereading and doing the breath practices from that book that I referenced in the last episode, The Presence Process by Michael Brown. And I think this was spurred because right when the Sun transited into the gate of the now, I was having a weekly therapy session, and my therapist mentioned how she's noticed how I'm often multitasking when I'm on a call with her. And I kind of felt called out by that, but I really resonated with that being true. Like, oh, I don't want to do a video call. Let's do a voice call so I can also be writing an email or preparing food to take to pick up my daughter or whatever it is that I'm doing. And I didn't think she noticed that on the other end of the line, but it's very noticeable when you're not in that present moment, especially for something where you should be focusing and being with yourself. And so I took that comment and that call out as a real sign to lean into the gate of the now and really think about being in the present moment as much as possible. I think that my interests in both astrology and human design and all of these kind of larger systems of thought, and my simultaneous interest in breathwork and somatics and embodiment are a really beautiful combination. But I've noticed that since I started this podcast, I've gotten a lot more in the cerebral side of putting together all of these different episodes, different writings, making sure that it's published in different channels, marketing, all of the different things. And it takes time to make something like this. And so as I have more of that type of work that I've assigned myself in the cerebral realm of putting pieces together, I notice that I sometimes don't allot enough time for transitions between things, or I don't allot enough time to do the practices that have really helped me so much over the past several years in my life and have really become a place of wisdom that's not in my mind, that's in my body. And so as I was going through the presence process and still kind of feeling really up in my mind, noticing how much I was wanting to multitask or check off some boxes of what I needed to do, I was invited to guide a facilitated breathwork session for a group that my friend was bringing into town, and have done some guided breathwork group sessions recently, but I hadn't for a while. And so having that invitation felt really nice and really encouraged me to put my money where my mouth was as far as like getting back into that practice of being in the body. And the thing about the type of breath work I do, this conscious connected breath work, is that it is changing through breathing fairly quickly and through your mouth and bringing a lot of airflow through your system, breathing deep into your belly. There's a change of what happens in your body. Your blood changes its alkalinity, actually, and there's like an off-gassing of carbon dioxide. And so what it kind of does is sideline your neocortex and your cerebral thinking brain a little bit so that the limbic system and lower levels of your brain, the emotional centers of your brain, as well as the peripheral nervous system and the fascia and the muscles and the body itself, can kind of take center stage, and you can give your neocortex a little bit of a break, and the wisdom of your body and the wisdom of your emotions that don't always get to shine or don't always get to speak because our brain is wanting to take this center stage. They're allowed to come on in this process, and it's something that has been super beneficial for me. So the other day, last week, actually on the full moon, I got to really lead some people through that process and also do it myself, and it just got me reinvigorated to get into the present moment through breath and through concerted attention and energy to embodiment practices. And I heard a quote that the brain is never in the present moment, that it's always in the past or the future, because that's the brain's job, is to think about what has happened in the past and what could possibly happen in the future and solve for that. And so coming into the body through exercise, through breath, whatever way it is that we actually are giving kind of equal attention to other organs of our body besides the brain, maybe the lungs, maybe the stomach, whatever it is, and not putting so much attention and so much pressure on this beautiful singular organ of the brain. I'm starting to really believe that that is the only way to access the present moment. Not just by thinking about the present moment, because that's almost defeats the purpose. And so, the Presence Week hit hard for me in the sense that it just felt very poignant. It came up in my life in a lot of ways. And as I looked at my birth chart, my astrology birth chart, I noticed that my natal Chiron, who is the asteroid known as the wounded healer, is in the first degrees of Gemini in this gate of the now. And so I spent a lot of time thinking and feeling and breathing into how this particular energy of the now does bring up a lot of wounds from my past. And also, I really started to notice how much it feels like leaning into that wounding and difficulty surrounding the present moment is also a really great path towards healing the pain that I carry and the wounds that I have, like the Chiron myth says. So, yeah, I mean, true presence is hard for me, I have to admit. And I think it's hard for a lot of us, but looking at my chart, I was like, wow, this is personal right here. This is something that is a wound and where all of these planets are hitting right now. So it feels really like a beautiful way to interpret that and then be able to take what I will with that and get into my body to process it. So I think, yeah, it's easy to feel preoccupied with how our time could be better spent in each moment. And we end up kind of clucking around like anxious chickens. I know I do. And I notice that the more time I spend on a singular thing, one at a time, like playing with my daughter with no distractions or taking a bath without reading a book even, or writing an email with only the email tab open in my browser and not a majillion tabs, the more quickly I get positive feedback from the world on that singular act. And it kind of feels like magic when you start to practice it, as I did last week. So how did your week of the now go? Or do you have any planets there in the first degrees of Gemini, which would be the gate of the now? I would love to hear about it in the comments. And I do believe that as we enter more fire and yang energy in the wheel of the year, which is happening along with the airy nature of Gemini season, it's a great idea to take the reminder of the power of presence as a talisman kind of in your back pocket and just have that there. Breath practices. I am excited to keep practicing them myself and offering more. So stay tuned for an update to my website where I will be offering kind of some astro breath sessions that allow us to have this cerebral information about the cycles of time, about the transits and our birth charts and all of these differentiators, but then also to really ground into it through kind of turning our brains off a little bit. So I'm excited to launch those fairly soon. So this week, we are still in Gemini season, continuing along, and we're in the season of fire in the medicine wheel and the whooshing 5-element cycle. The moon is waning from full to new this week, and in the human design or I Ching outer wheel of the cycles of time, wheel of the year, we are predominantly in the gate of skills, which is gate 16 or hexagram 16. And that's transiting from yesterday, May 26th, until Saturday, June 1st. After that, we'll enter the gate of change, but we'll dig more into that one next week. So this week's themes are enthusiasm and skills, and like I mentioned, maintaining the power of the now in these acquisition of new skills and enthusiasm, because we have a lot of that big, both of the benefics, Jupiter and Venus of the zodiac are in that gate. And so it's a lot of now energy maintaining as well as this enthusiasm and skills. So jumping right into gate 16, hexagram 16, it's known as the gate of skills or the gate of mastery. And this mini season within Gemini season is all about mastering a craft through repetition and attracting others with our enthusiasm. And we become enthusiastic and attract others because we are immersed in our chosen craft. So this really picks up the gate of the now and what we learned there and brings it into how we talk about it, how we enact that present moment. What are we doing in that moment? And there's an air of experimentation with this gate. I think that this week we will be reminded that perfection is the opposite of good, and we have to have courage to take action once we sit in that present moment and realize what it is that we the wisdom that comes through our body in that present moment. We have to then take the first step and see what opens up and be brave in that sense. We need to trust in the process of practicing to hone our skills, and we have to be aware that we're not born knowing how to do everything. Because of the time it takes to master a skill, it's important to ponder this week what it is that you're the most curious about and the most fascinated by. And then you'll have the enthusiasm to practice your interests again and again and again until you become skillful at them. So it takes, just leaning into the curiosity of the moment in a real way. What are you becoming obsessed with? What will drive you through the boring process of repetition? I remember as a startup founder, which was my past life in San Francisco, I founded a startup that helps nonprofits with online fundraising back in 2011, 2012, and went through a couple of tech accelerators and incubators, kind of with a lot of different advisors and investors and people in the mix telling you the best practices for starting something up. And I remember, one of the top words of advice was always to solve for something that is your own problem. And it can't only be your own problem. It has, if you're starting a tech startup, you have to have a problem that affects a lot of people and, to a certain critical mass. But from the beginning, knowing that you're going to be plodding through the work day in and day out, it can't be something that you're not interested in. So, people would have great ideas about a certain target market, like a niche that has a problem, but it wasn't their problem and would get kind of burnt out by it because it wasn't personally affecting them. So in this case, with the gate of skills, you have to have enough enthusiasm about what it is that you're trying to get skilled at. This seems kind of obvious when I say it out loud, but I think more often than not, we're trying to solve for like highly strategic things that are outside of ourselves and best possible outcomes. And really, it requires being in that present moment and then saying, what do I care so much about? What keeps me up at night? And does this also keep other people up at night? Oh, maybe there's a business there. So in the I Ching, the gate 16, hexagram 16, is known as enthusiasm, and it's represented by the trigrams thunder over earth. So the symbolism of this hexagram, and which you can see in visuals on astrosomatics.substack.com, the symbolism is one solid yang line among 5 broken yin lines. And I got this quote from the I Ching website called iFate, and it says, "One strong line exists among many weaker supporting lines. In matters involving group decisions, consensus will be reached, and a single point of view will be shared among many. Unity is referenced here. Many act as one because one acts with confidence and clear leadership, aka enthusiasm." So the one solid line in the hexagram is like a thunderbolt of creative energy, I'd say, that sparks and inspires the more receptive nature of the yin lines, which are earth lines. So there's, thunder over earth. And the enthusiasm contained in this thunder, I've heard it described in several places that I've read about this hexagram, that it's like kind of like a singer or a dancer or a performer. The easiest way to see it is in those types of outputs, but a singer or a dancer who's so passionate about their art that they inspire a crowd of people to rise to their feet, and that in turn inspires the singer or dancer to perform their very best. So unity is achieved through that initial spark of creativity, clear leadership, passion, enthusiasm about what it is that you're doing and you're in the moment doing, so that it creates this reciprocity of energy going outward into an audience or into the world and then coming back around again to give you even more enthusiasm about it. So that's the vibes of this week. The word enthusiasm derives from the Latin and Greek meaning to be possessed by the breath of God, which I thought was really cool. I did not know that, but breath. Again, here we are talking about breath and breathwork and the present moment as a way to get to the present moment is the breath. And the breath of God being like the universal breath that's kind of overtaken you in this process of this feedback loop of enthusiasm. One thing that I think about when I think about that dancer or singer or, someone doing a pitch competition or whatever it is where you're expressing your passion for something, the power truly comes from the heart and instead of the head. And, the lungs, as we breathe, are cradling our heart. So it taps back into that metaphor as well. But they're rising out of if you're truly enthusiastic or you're around a truly enthusiastic person, no matter how skilled they are as far as the checking the boxes of what it means to be in mastery, they're people that take true joy in their work. And that leads to more and more mastery. And I think that last week's gate of the now, gate of presence, with enthusiasm in the moment creates an environment where leadership happens that way through the energetic flow. It's like wind filling the sails of a boat. There's a special particular electricity to the shared moments in the presence of a masterful person, I think, that allow things to move forward through a collective feeling rather than through logical persuasion or logical showing the steps, right? So this week, the assignment, I keep saying the assignment, and I think it's kind of funny, but this is the cycles of time school. So I'm taking them as assignments. But this week, the assignment is to allow yourself to get lost in your passions. I had a conversation about the idea of flow states with some friends the other day. And each of us in this conversation shared about moments where we feel like we're in flow, like flow being so deep in a hobby or in our work or in play that time seems to disappear and everything seems to just flow together harmoniously. And I've thought a lot about flow states through the years. I definitely love them. And in San Francisco, when I lived there, there was a flow genome project that I was kind of on the periphery involved with and really just fascinated by how do we codify what is flow? And so for me, I'd say I've found flow states in when I'm dancing, when I'm snowboarding, and when I'm painting or making collages. And those are the things that I named in this conversation. And everybody had a lot of different types of things to say. But for me, these are all things where I've unapologetically given in to both the repetition of a movement or a repetition of an action and also experimenting with the movements or expression naturally as they arise. And it's funny because we were also talking about how we've noticed that most of us feel more attractive to other people during and right after being in those states. You don't have to be in the dance, but there's that glow that comes from that present moment plus skill experience where you have this aura of attractiveness. And when I reflect on that, I can see how skillfulness and mastery lead to personal attractiveness and also inspiring other people. And you can often think of that as there's those show-offs. There's people who are showing off their skills and it's an eye roll. It's kind of annoying. But I think that when you truly meet a person who has genuine internal mastery, it feels different than someone who's showing off. And there's just an exuding of this beautiful energy that that thunderbolt in the I Ching of contagious creativity that helps people come into unity with you, with your energy field and your energy body. And you're deep in your heart and your body and your mind that are kind of lining up in that flow state. And that is what true enthusiasm looks like. It's not there's a mock or a pseudo enthusiasm that I think of sometimes when I hear that word. That's just high five, cool, but it doesn't feel real. So I love, thinking about enthusiasm in this way as just that that internal present moment, passion, obsession, really wanting to do something again and again because you love it so much, and then how quickly that can affect all of the other bodies around you. I think that when this type of energetic feedback between the skilled enthusiast and the people that they attract, it's also very possible to be multifaceted and multi-passionate, and able to cross-pollinate our talents across a number of different crafts and fields because of that magnetic, energetic feedback loop. And Gemini season is a time when a lot of people are talking about like the pros and cons of being multi-passionate or having a lot of interests or being kind of distractible. And I think that it does require a lot of energy to be authentically multifaceted and multi-passionate. I believe that because you can get very distracted and never be in the now if you're always chasing something new. But if you are enthusiastic and honest about it coming from that place of your heart, then you can get more energy back to put into that feedback loop. So these are just some thoughts I've been having. My partner's dad was born with this gate of skills, and he's wonderful, and I have to say he's one of the most enthusiastic people I've ever met. He's not overly enthusiastic about everything. Like, he's not that person who's smiling and positive and, like, almost unrealistic all the time. But his enthusiasm does feel more like this passionate depth of an interest. He's an architect, but he does watercolor and e-biking, and he always has some interest that really sparks him deeply internally and leads to other people also being similarly motivated and inspired by that. So it creates that feedback loop. And he's definitely not set in his ways. He's very experimental in the way that this gate shows up. And he's always playing with something new and trying his best to achieve mastery or skill in it and not stopping short because it's like, oh, that's not what I do for a living. But there's a lot of play. So happy birthday, Courtney, and happy birthday to you if your birthday is this week and you're listening. I'm curious if it is your birthday this week, how the gate of skills or enthusiasm resonates with you. Super fascinating. The more I look at a placement of one of these I Ching gates in the wheel that I have, my sun's in 64, and I know that, and it's a big dose of energy from the sun. But when I look at my birth chart and line up what other planets are in different gates and think about what they mean to me during the process of this experiment, of this podcast, of this depth of being in that energy of the moment, I'm just always blown away by how much it teaches me. And so I'd love to know if it's your birthday or if you have any other planets in the gate of skills and enthusiasm, how it resonates. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in the context of Gemini just for another minute, and then we'll wrap this up. But I've been really interested in, ancient origins of the different signs, and Gemini's origins in the Greek and Roman mythology. The constellation Gemini is associated with Castor and Pollux. So these were twin brothers, and they were often referred to as the Dioscuri. And they were thought to have been born out of the same egg. They were the sons of Leda, who is the queen of Sparta in Greece. And Castor was the son of Tyndareus, who was the king of Sparta. So nice king and queen, had a son. But Pollux was the son of Zeus, or Jupiter in Roman mythology, who transformed into a swan and seduced Queen Leda the same night as she copulated with the king. So they were twins, but born of different fathers. And there's a lot of art about Leda and the swan. Zeus was always transforming into one animal or another to seduce humans and royalty. So I don't know how I feel about that. But that's how Castor and Pollux came to be. So the royal human Castor and the demigod son of Zeus, Pollux, were these heroes in Greek mythology that were these inseparable brothers. And they were also, I'm talking about them now because they embodied so much skill, mastery, and enthusiasm. They were incredibly skilled, masterful, and enthusiastic beings in many ways. Early in life, Castor became famous for his skill with horses, and Pollux became known for his fighting. He was an unrivaled boxer. And so, like Gemini, the archetype of Gemini, they were both known to be curious and passionate about all the things life had to offer, and super experimental, traveling all over the place. And they showed off their skillfulness across all corners of the globe. Castor and Pollux joined Jason and the Argonauts in their seafaring adventures to find the Golden Fleece, and they also just had so many adventures. They were very well-known, very highly regarded figures. In this process of adventure, some Gemini nature, they became the patron saint of sailors, and so they were often called upon to get sailors out of sticky situations in their sea voyages. And there's a term in sailing called St. Elmo's fire, which is a glow that emits from tall objects like sail masts during storms at sea. And this is thought to be the spirits of Castor and Pollux who are protecting the ships. So not only were these two twins skillful in their persistence toward mastery of various crafts like boxing and sailing and horsemanship, but they were also incredibly enthusiastic in their desire to share their mastery with each other and bring together the world at large through these skills that they had. The Castor and Pollux, just to finish their story, after their many adventures, fell in love with twin sisters who were already betrothed to their cousins. And so there's some, lovely art, lots of different paintings of them carrying these women off to Sparta, pursued by the cousins, where Castor was mortally wounded in battle. He was the mortal one. And so the demigod Pollux couldn't stand to be without his brother. They were unified twins. They would not be apart. So he begged Zeus to make him mortal so they could be reunited. And then Zeus took pity and gave Pollux the option to give up half of his immortality to share it with his twin brother. And the brothers took turns living down with Hades in the underworld and with the gods in Mount Olympus, sharing a body in the underworld and up above. And so one day Castor would be with the gods and Pollux would be down in Hades land, and the next day they would switch. And so that went on for some time, and it shows kind of like, the dual binary nature of the Gemini twins, as well as how they were interconnected always. So after some time of that, Zeus cast both of them up into the sky, and they formed the constellation Gemini. Immortal twins in the sky forever, giving us this beautiful season. So this week, as we deepen into the season of the twins, I encourage you to follow your curiosities and your fascinations and allow yourself to experiment and be enthusiastic about your choice of what it is you're spending your time on. If you feel less than enthused, then try something else. That's totally Gemini energy right there. So it's okay. And who knows, by spending your time on something that does bring you so much joy, it might even lead to mastery, and through just keeping on doing that, what brings you joy, and even might attract the right people into your life. I've seen that to be true, and I love that about this week in the Wheel of the Year. So have a lovely week ahead, everybody. I will see you next week for the Gemini new moon and entering into the gate of change. This gate next week will be, it's represented by the fire over earth. And so it's kind of like the sun rising at the dawn of a new day, where it's all about adventure and applying your skills and mastery that came about this week after being in the now and the present moment, to adventure to new heights and see new things. I have a new website waiting for me to push the publish button, but for some reason it hasn't felt right. It has some new offerings, just new ways of explaining things, and I'm excited to launch it into the world. But I think I'm going to use this gate gate of skills to just, get into the nuts and bolts about that. And maybe next week in that gate of adventure, just go ahead and push publish and share it with y'all. But before that, you can follow me on Instagram at Cycles of Time Podcast or Astrosomatics, or you can subscribe to the newsletter at astrosomatics.substack.com to receive this podcast in your inbox along with some additional resources every Monday. I hope you have a beautiful day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.